Hello again everyone, Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about Mercury unaspected in a natal horoscope. Now, when any planet is unaspected, it's isolated, it doesn't make any aspects, so as far as negative or adverse aspects go, there's no obstruction or blockage, it moves freely. Without any positive aspects such as a sextile or trine, there is no integration, so there's no blending, and it could indicate a lack of an outlet for that energy. Now if Mercury is unaspected, which of course is very isolated or rare in a natal chart, it could indicate a lot of restlessness. It could show or indicate somebody that is could be very multifaceted, learns many subjects, but might not have the persistence or follow through to assimilate all of them. This could be somebody that would have all kinds of writing accessories and have an abundance of books, but doesn't necessarily read all of them from start to finish. The mind might be be able to learn a lot in a period that's not sustained, might be able to learn a lot in a rather short period. This could also, besides communication, Mercury is also connected with short journeys. Maybe this person takes a lot of little quick visits, might have a thing where they just feel compelled to maybe move around a lot. There might be a lot of mobility, but the person may not necessarily stay in one particular place for that long. Now it's interesting that Gandhi had Mercury in Scorpio in the first house unaspected. Now, being the fact that Mercury, I would think, would be associated with neighbors, and it's connected with communication, he was somebody that was able to communicate in an uninhibited manner without really any restraint, and being able to quote-unquote communicate with his neighbors very readily and facilely. And it didn't matter who had any opposition to him as far as his beliefs were, or who was adversarial. He just went ahead and basically did his communication without any kind of regardless of intervention or any kind of possible obstruction, because basically he was going to go unobstructed as far as what his message was that he was going to convey. And we look at Mercury that is unaspected, could show somebody that really can be very loquacious, very talkative. The mind can be restless, very mobile, can go from one subject to another, can go on to tangents very quickly. Now the fact though is, when Mercury is unaspected, it is isolated. So it can indicate somebody that might be someone that might be a conversation dominator at times, and thus in its own way there's isolation in terms of them being maybe almost the only one talking, or there might be some vacillation and fluctuation with this. There might be times where maybe the opposite happens and this person will actually listen to many people talking, but may not always inject their own viewpoint, or might be reluctant to ingratiate themselves into the conversation or group in terms as far as speaking goes. Now, even if somebody, let's say, were to have, even if Mercury is in its detriment, for example, let's say in Pisces, and let's say that it was unaspected in the third house, now everything would have to be factored in. Now granted, Mercury may be in its detriment, is in its detriment in Pisces, but being in the third house, the person might have a versatile mind, be very multifaceted, may talk about many different things, but may talk a lot about things that are Pisces related and be emotional, maybe things connected perhaps with the water, the sea, chemicals such as like pollutants, for example. The person might talk about things connected with compassion, charity, things that are associated with being philanthropic. So everything would be blended in, and the person that would have the Pisces Mercury would be more, I I guess you could say, a little bit more loquacious, more talkative, more about, the mind would be a little bit more restless than the typical Mercury in Pisces would indicate. So another example, we'll take somebody with Mercury in the third house, unaspected Mercury in Cancer. Now the person would have would talk very much still in the Cancer way, maybe talking about things connected with the past, reminiscing things that are nostalgic, about novelty, could sound very emotional when communicating, but at the same time could be very restless, might still have that quick, versatile mind being in the third house, and also may be enamored with learning, but may not always have the persistence to stick with one thing at a particular time. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Mercury unaspected in a natal chart. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be dissertating and talking about Venus unaspected in a natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because a person astrologically is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.